Hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and this is a podcast for the chili community, by the chili community, regardless of your spice tolerance. This is the place for you. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. I have two sauces on deck that are going to be for hot or not. We have an amazing guest locked and loaded, and then we have a pepper gauntlet game tonight. So let's start episode number 67. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have y'all here, ready to go for the show. Whether you're turning it in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for being here. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. I cannot wait to get into, but once again, we are continuing to share this out with other like-minded chili heads. So if you know anyone that is curious about, getting into the world of spice or really what goes on in the community, this is a great podcast to share around and bring those in that are already immersed in the community to be able to see some of these sauce makers, these growers, the hobbyists, everyone in between. This is a very fun episode here tonight. We have two sauces from Down to Ferment on deck for hot or not. We have the pepper guru, Rich Blood, as our guest here tonight. And then we have brought in iteration number 8 of the pepper gauntlet. If this is your first time checking out the show, thank you so much for being here. Just want a friendly reminder that y'all can definitely play a part in the game. Fire off in the comments. Let us know if you would have changed anything or if Rich's selection lined up with yours. First, let's go ahead and jump on over to Hot or Not. All right, hey, welcome on into Hot or Not. Tonight we have two sauces on deck from Down to Ferment. I mean, if you are looking for a nice fermented sauce, this is going to be a fermented hot or not tonight. So here we go. Let's get a close-up of these sauces here. So we have the Habang Guero Pina, and then we have cherry Poppins. So this is going to be a fun one. Let's go ahead. And if this is your first time checking out Hot or Not, if you're just now finding the podcast, thank you. I do things a little bit different here. So I don't do a 1 to 10 scale. I do 1 out of 5. And that's really breaking down on 5 different categories. Those categories are heat, aroma, flavor, versatility, and burn. Man, I add those up, average them out, and that gives us our total swear word rating. So what we will do is we will start off with cherry Poppins from Down to Ferment. All right. So for all those that are keeping track, this does have a nice perforated cellophane wrap. So let's go ahead and get that one started. Pull that off. Give it a good shake. All right. Color-wise, I mean, this dark red, very beautiful color that's going on here. I would say, yeah, probably a medium consistency. It looks like it has a nice flow at the tipping point. Really, once the air bubble gets past the neck of the bottle, this thing looks like it's sailing. So, from a pour standpoint, this is going to let it flow out very nicely. Love the graphics. Love the visual pop. Definitely a very creative name, and I'm digging that. But let's go ahead and open it up. Give it a good smell. Man, it smells amazing. For all those that are wondering, no flow restrictor. Definitely don't mind when they're gone because I like the sake of the pour and to use my sauce quite a bit. So get that pour going. Man, look at that. Look at that. Oh. There we go. Cheers. Oh my gosh. Wow. That is absolutely amazing. Right off the bat, a very subtle sweetness, and then you're really tasting a nice cherry flavor forward on this sauce. Then you're getting some ginger notes, some onion, what tastes like a bit of citrus of some sort, a little bit of, really what's carrying forward now is also a little bit of, tastes like maybe some orange or some, some other fruit notes that are carrying forward outside of just the cherry itself. But that ginger, very fruit flavor without that sweet fruit taste, very savory, very easy to utilize on food from what I'm picking up right here. But let's do this. Let's talk about heat. So if you heard earlier where I described heat and burn, most people categorize those together. I like to break them out. So what I do is heat for me is that first initial pop. It's that first max 30-second window. So let's talk about heat. So on cherry Poppins, the heat on this thing is definitely one that you're going to be able to enjoy. You're going to be able to go to town on. If you are just really starting to get comfortable, or you're just starting to venture out into hot sauces or spicy food in general, this sauce right here is going to be absolutely amazing for you to jump in with, because you could go to town on this and not really burn yourself down. Now, you heard me mention all the fruit flavors that I was picking up. This sauce right here, from a versatility standpoint, I could see myself using this on dessert. I could see myself using this on a traditional dish, whether that be burgers, sandwiches, tacos, pizza, you name it. Protein and a veggie, protein and a rice, etc. The list goes on and on. This sauce, because of the fruit body to it, but not really having all that sweetness that comes with that typically, you're able to cut it both ways very easily. It's not going to be something that's just going to drop a lot of sugary sweetness on your food. So from a savory dish standpoint, you do not have that concern here. Now, the other side is, because of that fruit body that you're tasting, you're also able to pair this with some desserts. I'm definitely looking forward to this, not to mention I have a feeling that this would be a very great addition to any kind of a drink. So adding it to a lemonade to kind of give it a little bit of extra pop, a little bit extra flavor is going to be absolutely phenomenal, and definitely something I'm going to check out and try. Now, let's talk about the overall aroma. Right off the bat, let me get another good whiff of this. Yeah, right off the bat, you're picking up a little bit more of, so in the taste, I was picking up the ginger about halfway through as the flavors were starting to transition. On this one, you're picking up the ginger note off the nose pretty quickly. You're also picking up the overall fruity body to this. It's not really distinguishing of one said thing. Like I said, I was definitely tasting a little bit of cherry, definitely tasting a little bit of orange or something like that. Has a nice citrusy zestiness to it. And really, that's the main focal points and notes that you're getting from this sauce. Now, the burn on this one, once again, if you're just starting out, this is definitely going to be a very safe one for you. It's not really going to burn you down in the sense of having to worry about how much you're doing. You're going to be able to use this pretty safely without having to really hurt yourself, and grow that tolerance, find that passion, find that love, and really continue to walk down your capsaicin journey. But if you're pushing yourself, if you're constantly going towards, really finding your personal thresholds, this sauce right here, man, while it may not push your tolerance higher, the flavor profile and the capabilities on this sauce are just astronomically, superior in that sense. So from a burn standpoint, if you're pushing yourself all the time, this is going to be a nice mild sauce. Now, if you're just starting out, you might say this is mild or medium, but it's definitely going to err a little bit more on the mild side. Flavor is king in this sauce, and that is one thing that is 100% true throughout. But I always like to read the ingredients after I try it, so let's go ahead and read off some ingredients here. All right, so cherry Poppins from Down To Ferment. Let's go ahead and get these ingredients read off here. So we have kombucha culture, dark sweet cherries, red bell peppers, apples, orange juice. Okay, there we go. Onion, and then we have Maraschino cherries, nectarines, lemon juice, ginger, sea salt, habanero peppers, orange peel, and of course, these are all fermented ingredients. Absolutely amazing. As I was saying, definitely was able to pick up the body of the cherries throughout this sauce. However, I did notice a nice citrus cut. I did notice there was some kind of a different fruit flavor going on in here. And that's definitely starting to make sense when you have orange juice listed on here, as well as lemon juice. And you're also picking up the nectarines, the apples, and you're getting some orange peel. So that kind of zesty taste is definitely coming from that orange peel, that citrus, and the overall orange juice that is in this sauce. But, you know, the beauty of this is everything plays so harmonious throughout the whole entire way. I absolutely love this sauce. Let's go ahead and get some of these read off. All right, so cherry Poppins from Down To Ferment. Heat coming in at 2.25, aroma of 4.2, flavor of 4.38, versatility of a 4.45, burn of a 2.25 for a total swear word rating of 4.31. There we go. Man, another amazing sauce. This one is from Down To Ferment, cherry Poppins. I'm excited to jump into the next one. Let's go ahead and grab that other bottle. All right, let's grab Habang Guero Pina, and let's go ahead and get this one opened up. Once again, same perforation, so let's get that one opened. Throw that off to the side. Man, so, you know, with this being a fermented sauce, with the kombucha being in the overall mix for cherry Poppins, man, I absolutely love kombucha, so excited to get into this. Habang Guero Pina. Here we go. Let's open this one up. Once again, no flow restrictor. Great for me. I love the overall aroma. A little bit of zesty. You can definitely smell the peppers. You're picking up the pineapple. All in all, and then there's like a sweet towards the end of that aroma. There's a little bit of a sweet note, almost like almost reminds me of like an apple or a pear type of aroma to it. So excited to get into this one. Once again, Down To Ferment. This is Habang Guero Pina. Nice pour there. Man. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Right off the bat, taste is very smooth, very creamy, almost like a silky inviting note that comes through. Then you're getting the nice fruit nature. You're getting that pineapple taste right off the bat. And then it starts to carry over into like an onion and garlic. And then you're starting to pick up the notes of peppers. The way this is stinging the tongue and also kind of indicative of the name, I'm definitely going to go out on a limb and say this is definitely, you know, fueled heat-wise in a way that would be habaneros maybe going on in this, but absolutely a phenomenal sauce. One that I can see myself using once again. Very, versatile sauce in general. I'm not only gonna be using this on, you know, burgers, sandwiches, pizza, the typical go-tos, any kind of dish that you can think of that would pair well with this sauce being like a pineapple taste, gonna be absolutely phenomenal. The other beauty is because it's not overly sweet, there's not very much of like a sweet carry through on this. You're able to use this on all those savory dishes without affecting, you know, a sugary taste to your meal. But it's also done in such a way that you could get away with using this on a dessert as well and in a drink. So let's do this. Let's talk about heat. So right off the bat, if you're just starting out, once again, as a great earmark for that, moderation is definitely going to be key on this one. It's going to be substantially different in heat than cherry Poppins. So the heat on this one hits nice and quick, hits the front of the mouth, hits the gums, hits the lips, but then it really starts to transition towards the back of the throat. As it's sitting there, you're getting almost like a zestiness from, say, maybe a ginger and garlic and stuff like that. And then as those initial notes hit, that's when the peppers really start to latch in, take hold, and you start to feel it. It starts to build pretty nice, and then it plateaus and just holds. And it'll just kind of do a nice smoldering, roaring burn. All in all, absolutely packed with flavor. Another amazing sauce from a flavor standpoint. If you are, pushing yourself, your tolerance is always something that you're working on. This is going to be a nice medium sauce for you. Now, this is going to be a phenomenal sauce to go to town on, lather it up on your dishes, because you can, if you're pushing your tolerance on a daily scale and you're starting to get comfortable with it, you're really going to be able to burn through this bottle pretty fast because, let's face it, it tastes amazing. So, talk about the overall burn. So, once again, to reflect on that last part that I was talking about, the burn is mostly isolated in the back of the throat, kind of giving a stinging but also a roaring little burn going on in the back of the throat. It just sits there, nothing in the chest, nothing in the stomach, and really the front of the mouth has just completely cleared of any kind of sting or burn or anything of that nature. So let's read off some ingredients here. All right. Ingredients on Habang Guero Pina. We have pineapple juice, kombucha culture, pineapple, fermented orange habanero peppers, yellow bell peppers, guaro chilies, carrots, red onion, and garlic and salt. Absolutely phenomenal sauce. Very unique taste. If you have tried many different habanero, pineapple blends, or any kind of habanero fruit sauce before, this has a very unique taste, a very phenomenal aroma and taste on this. Nice heat level, and one that is going to be super versatile. I am excited to continue to use this one, and I know it's not going to last very long. The overall rating for Habang Guero Pina. Heat coming in at 3.34, aroma of 4.27, a flavor of 4.3, a versatility of 4.23, and a burn of 3.42 for a total swear word rating of 3.91. Man, another amazing sauce from Down To Ferment. Highly recommend checking out both of these. I'll have the links for them directly down below, as well as a means to check out the full sauce lineup from Down To Ferment. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the interview. Hey, Rich, how's it going?
What's up, dude? How are you?
Doing good. Glad to have you here. You've been nominated a few times by a few different folks, and we've been trying to figure out a time to have you on, and glad to have this whole thing line up, work out, and really get to understand the Pepper Guru.
Yeah, that was actually a surprise seeing like 3 different people, I think it was, nominate me.
Yeah.
They're all really good dudes in the community, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen your grow pictures. I've heard amazing things about you. So super excited to dive in. For all those that are watching, listening, and are unfamiliar, I mean, absolute monster of plants that you just grow. I mean, they're borderline trees, if you will. They're not plants. They're trees.
Yep. Just I'm just trying to emulate what I see in South America, where they're endemic down there in the mountains. And when you find them in the mountains, wild, growing in their natural habitat, they're always huge. Not always, but they definitely have the potential to do that in nature without anybody taking care of them. So you kind of take clues and cues from that and try to emulate that as best you can.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean to that point, that actually hits on perfectly with something that I've always mentioned and advocated and really try to open up others' eyes to is this world's been around a heck of a lot longer than we have, and these
Yep.
plants have been able to survive without us meddling in their way.
Yep.
There's a way to do this without having to constantly go out and buy all these synthetic fertilizers and all these things that we are told that is the right way to do it.
Correct. Correct.
Just looking at, as you're saying, just looking at nature versus what we try to manipulate and do,
Right.
it's leagues different.
Yep. And if all you have access to is synthetic fertilizers, that's okay too, as long as you focus on your medium saturation at all times, field capacity, um, container size, light intensity, and just every single watering session needs to have some kind of nutrient in it.
Yep. Yep. No, I definitely agree. Now, I will definitely start off by saying I am by no means a complete subject matter expert or a scientific proof type of person. I like to nerd out about this. This is what I'm passionate about. I'm always trying to learn. I may not always retain the scientific terms for everything, but the methods and the processes that go into it is really what I like to dive deep on and understand. So,
Yeah, dude. No matter how much of an expert someone wants to try to portray themselves as, we're all just hanging on for dear life here. You know what I mean? And it's awesome, like you say, to nerd out on something and really try to just dive deep on something. It's good to be kind of obsessive about those kind of things in our hobbies. Learning a subject and the subject matter as much as you possibly can so that you can just succeed, set yourself up for an opportunity for success in that area. You know what I mean? And it'll come through in your work and your results.
yeah, no, definitely, absolutely agree with that. I definitely want to continue this, but one thing that everyone always likes to enjoy understanding a little bit more about is what got you into the world of, just spicy food in general, and
Oh,
what kind of catapulted you now to be traveling the world and finding all these amazing peppers.
okay. How much time we got? No. Okay. So, from birth to 10 years old, right? I was always walking our family farms and gardens with my grandparents, and they were the real green thumbs of my family, right? And that always interested me very much. I loved nature. I loved reptiles. I used to be like really big into herpetology, but the more and more my grandparents would walk me through those farms and gardens and like small orchards that they would plant and tell me about the plants, the more I just got really, really intrigued by what makes a good plant, what makes a healthy plant. And those answers became more apparent. It's really about soil, it's about nutrients, about soil life. You just got to really focus on the fundamentals of the plant that you're looking to grow. What conditions did it evolve in, right?
Yep.
And I'd say probably about the age of 10 was, that was 1994, I guess. We just moved to Georgia from Florida, or from Maine, actually. I was back and forth between Florida and Maine quite a bit when I was young. But we had just moved here from Maine, me and my dad. And my dad was really, really big into bonsai. So that kind of was going with that same theme that I learned from just horticulture in general.
Yep.
And except this kind of, the bonsai thing sort of instills a bit of art into it. Now we can get on to another tangent about what I think about bonsai now, knowing what I know. And bonsai is just stressing the plant, right?
Yep.
It's plant torture,
Yep.
but plant torture as an art, right?
Yep.
So that kind of got me thinking in different directions, seeing the other side of the coin. And I think my first plant I planted was like a Thai dragon, something simple. Back in 1994, Thai dragons, stuff like that, jalapenos, annuum, lots of annuum. Chinense wasn't really big on the people's radar back in
Mm-hmm.
1994. I mean, you'd be lucky to find habaneros in like a Publix or something. Maybe you might find them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the way that I got into that slightly addicting aspect of the hot peppers was my dad would always dare me to try the peppers that we would grow. He would get like new seeds, you know, pen pal people. He was big into like fishing lure groups. So he was always pen paling these guys. And back in '94, you could buy like these little keyboards that hook up to your TV and your telephone. Like this was the first edition of the internet that was easily accessible by everybody. You could hook it up to your TV. So he would get into like these growing forums and stuff like that. And trading sometimes with like lures that he would buy or sell. Part of the trade back would be like seeds. Oh, grow these peppers. These are cool, blah, blah, blah. So he would always come up with these new seeds and be like, Richie, I got these seeds for you. You got to try it. Let's grow them, blah, blah, blah. And I would try them and they would burn me up because you know, I wasn't used to that. So that's just kind of how it started, man. And it just snowballed, you know, snowballed. I was that whole like search for the hottest thing that happened for me pretty early on, like year 2000. You started seeing like habaneros, red savinas, hotter and hotter chinense, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'd meet people on like forums like Garden Web back in when the year 2000 was transitioning from the 90s. 2003, Garden Web was shutting down. Then the hot pepper started. So
Yep.
you've got all these people on all these forums just trying to bring in the world's best peppers and share them out with as many people as possible. And that's just how it snowballs, you know?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. You know, you mentioned the hot pepper forum. That's actually where I ended up starting my journey into. And it's also kind of funny. I think I probably had about 3 accounts by the time it was all said and done because I set up the first one and I was so eager to get in there. I didn't even write down the password. Next thing you know, by the time my computer logged me out, I was like, what? How do I recover this now?
You're
know,
not the only person that's ever said that. I'll have to talk to the boss about that and ask what's up with the password thing. You're like the third or fourth person that I've mentioned the hot pepper and they said something about their password.
yeah. So I've had, like I said, probably 3 different, and they were all, you know, very, very, very creative with my names. It was always the same thing, minus like I would add an additional number or something at that point. I've since really got away from that because that just it becomes a headache of trying to remember. Okay, so this login is for that, and so anyway.
Yeah, and
Um,
the forum format is kind of I've heard people kind of critique it as like dinosaur format. You know what I mean? Oh, we have to read words. Oh no, we have to read words.
yeah.
It's like, okay, well, that's how I got my start on forums.
Yep.
Probably about 2003 or 4, maybe 2003 or 4. I was one of the youngest administrators on grasscity.com, which is like the
Okay.
biggest cannabis cultivation website in the world. So I got my chops basically perusing these forums and learning from the best growers in the world.
That's very cool. No, that's a great experience to have. And no shade to the forum side of the world. I'm a big car head, and so like all the car stuff originated on forums like that. And
Yep.
I mean, still to this day, I know there's all these groups and like Facebook things and this and that. It just
Yep.
doesn't hit the same as some of these forums. When
It
you
doesn't.
dive deep on these builds, it's a lot easier to track. It's a lot easier to keep up with. So
Yep. And Facebook is not quite as curated as a forum, right? Because the
yep.
forum has its style, the forum has its owner, its founder. They're kind of curating that environment to be the way they want it to be, you know, usually more authentic, more transparent, more honest. Facebook, you run into a lot of different walks of life, and
Yeah.
everybody's welcome in there. So it's hard to really curate things that well on open Facebook timeline forum, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Something you also mentioned as well, and I was just going to hit on this just ever so slightly. You had mentioned the bonsai. For all those that have watched or seen in movies, TV shows, or maybe sold in stores around you, those bonsai trees, I mean, they are beautiful. They are a piece of art.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, I've heard it tied into this same category. It's the same thing as if you were to look at, quote unquote, the beauty world. The pain comes the beauty. The same
Yeah.
thing with these trees. But the issue is, most of these models, I would say there's probably a small amount that don't agree to this. But, most of these models, they willingly put themselves in this environment. These trees don't willingly ask to be turned into bonsai trees. They are
Correct.
just forced into this whole,
Correct.
absolute torture to get them to produce the results that the
Yeah.
intended artist is looking for.
Yeah. It's human conceptualization and manipulation of a plant. And, I don't think there's anybody out there arguing that bonsais are, a way to increase yield, obviously, because the
Mm-hmm.
whole point is to make them small, miniature versions of what they should be.
Yep.
But it's still an art, and it's still a therapy for many, many people. And
Yep.
if that's what blows your skirt up, go for it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went through that phase thinking like, oh, I'm so whimsically artful by torturing this plant and making its pine needles this big instead of this long, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's But now I just kind of focus on yield.
Yeah.
I want the biggest plants I can get with the most amount of yield as possible off a single plant in a single season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're doing it, you're crushing it. You had also mentioned the soil as far as making sure that you're treating the soil right. The soil is living. I'm 100% in that camp.
Yep.
The problem that a lot of people face, whether it just be their regular lawn or something they're growing, it's ultimately due to the soil life, the soil
Yep.
health of what's going on there. Everything else balances itself out if you have the soil right. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
what I guess as far as without having to go into the full details of everything, what are you doing as far as being able to create these massive monster of a plant, and how long are you? I guess the second part to that is what does your season look like duration wise?
Well, in Atlanta, we have a pretty good substantial season. I mean, we're basically like a temperate rainforest here. With a very mild winter, you might get one or two freezes at end of December, January, February, but by Valentine's Day, it's already looking like it's about to heat back up again. So, in that regard, I have a lot of leeway with, the amount of time I can attack this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I find myself as the years go by. I mean, I've been at this, I'm 40 now. So, planting my first plant when I was 10, I've been at this 30 years,
Yep.
and each season that goes by, I just find myself starting later and later and later, because if you can get plants this big in 3 months, why start? Why start so soon and just create more work for yourself? It's one thing if you say, well, my season's only 2.5 months long. I'm in Alberta, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You still don't really need to start more than 6 to 8 weeks before your intended plant out date, whatever date that may be. So I just find myself starting later and later and later as the years go on.
Okay. Okay.
Um, you know, if you got 3 months in your region of temperatures between 65 and 95 degrees, you're good. Anything less than that, sure, you might want a poly tunnel, you might want a greenhouse, you might want to think of, you just got to use your imagination and create structures that help extend that a little bit for you. But dude, 70% of the Earth's surface experiences temperatures between 65 and 95 degrees in a single season. So, 70% of people don't really have an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Well, I guess the flip side to that, you mentioned the weather. A lot of things that people combat, and definitely down here in Texas, it almost seems a bit
Too
more,
hot.
yeah, a bit much in the sense of needing that shade cloth. Do you?
Definitely.
I've seen your grow a few of your grow pictures. You have like a lot of tree coverage in certain shots, but then others look pretty open.
Yep.
How does the sun ultimately affect, and do you tend to offset in either a natural shade cloth or an actual shade cloth?
So I recommend a 30% shade cloth. That's a sweet spot. Science tells us that at least for capsicum, the sweet spot's 30% shade if you even need that, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you're in Texas and it's cranking 105 for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need some shade cloth.
Yep.
And yeah, that will come with a little bit of cost at, light penetrance into that canopy, but you're still going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend anybody that's getting just scorching weather, like out west, Texas, anything past, west of Texas and in the south, midday shade cloth and Mister nozzles on timers, on automated timers, just to bring that relative humidity up
Yep.
around your plot, so that cycle of evaporation decreases that temperature by a few degrees. Can mean a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah. Yeah. And I've
especially
seen.
for that flower set.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it just drops like crazy during the summer.
Yep.
Like basically, you might as well just count in Texas. It feels like you might as well count that time off as
Yep.
nothing's happening. You're just trying to fight to keep them alive.
Yep.
And if something takes, man, that's a blessing right there in disguise.
Yep.
Uh, you had mentioned using the misters. Now, I've heard two different methods to this madness, and I don't know if maybe you have some insight on that. But I've heard the people that will say add the misters directly right there to the plant, almost acting like a drip irrigation. And then I've heard of others that say basically, so if like you had two rows, they would put it in the center so it just is an overcast. So it doesn't
I would
necessarily water, but it just brings
I
some
would
humidity.
recommend putting the misters above the plants so that it can fall like, you know, dew,
Mm-hmm.
rain, precipitation, natural precipitation. You want to coat those leaves. And this whole thing about, oh, the water droplets create magnifying glasses on our plant leaves and will burn. Dude, if that was the case, this entire earth would be in major trouble. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah.
So I
Uh,
wouldn't worry about that. One thing you could experience if your region has like a heavy density of fungal or bacterial spores, obviously increasing that relative humidity, you're kind of gonna reach a point of diminished returns there if you start inducing disease.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the only caveat to that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can definitely say I have tried both the method of not watering directly on the plant during the direct sunlight for one season. Like I did one row, I did not water that way, and the other row I did. And honestly, the one that I watered directly on seemed to yield and grow better than the one that I was just like, no, I'm just gonna get the base.
Bingo.
So it's pretty interesting how this whole thing plays out. But that's also a good part of the fun is really getting to understand and play with and figure out what works best for you.
Yep.
Which also kind of leads me into the next thing. Are you, I guess, what is your opinion on the idea that, let's say, a plant grown in another part of the world, it could be, or in a different part of the United States even, that maybe goes through a harsher climate in whether that be like floods or whether that be droughts or cold weather, and it having really strong genetics from that plant, right? And then taking the seed and trying to bring it to a different climate and seeing the resiliency carry forward. Do you believe in that camp that the resiliency withholds within the seed of that, or is it just strictly based on performance of that plant in that environment?
Okay, so stress tolerance is going to be genetic. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If you're taking something that is not very stress tolerant and you're growing it in a high stress environment, you're going to have issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you mitigate those stresses by implementing that shade cloth, good, huge containers with a lot of mass to keep that root zone cool? Can you do things like this? If you can, you'll probably be all right. I mean, and also I thought you were going to go into like the does stress make the plant more healthy and all this. No, stress never
Yeah.
makes a plant more healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's been the ongoing thing is it doesn't make it healthy, but also the other one that's more common than that is does it make a yield of a hotter pepper in general? And
Okay,
it's
so the answer to that, science says for annuums, it makes them like 8 to 13% hotter. For Chinense, for the superhots, it actually decreases their capsaicin production by about 8 to 13%. So that's something that these guys that are really into the superhots need to start paying attention to, because um, heat stress does not make your peppers hotter, especially if we're talking superhots.
Yeah, because most of the so this is from my own personal experience here. Speaking to that, the times that I've grown super hots and it's been in a very rough, very harsh, in summer or environment and just in general, ultimately what I have seen is the oils within those peppers are less than the oils that are on the later part of the year where it is a little bit more optimal to grow. It is a healthier plant in general, and they're just doing great. Like even I have two indoor grow tents that what I end up doing is I typically put two in one tent and two in the other, and that's kind of my year round. Let me just munch on these type of
Hmm.
things. Those, since it is very climate controlled, very very much, I can manipulate what is going on in there. Those tend to produce a lot hotter than the ones that are outside in those stressed environments. And
Right.
so, yeah, I definitely can see where that plays into effect, but I can also see where like jalapeno actually might increase in heat from that.
Yeah, and this is just from anecdotal tasting the peppers, but literally the science is telling us annuum gets hotter a little bit,
Hmm.
Chinense decreases in heat. So, dude, people need to really pay attention to what these studies are showing us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not to not I know we're nerding out on this, but I don't know how everyone else is doing. So let me just change a little bit, stay on topic, but change a little bit to obviously you travel the world, you're constantly finding different peppers, documenting it, showing it. I mean, you have a great channel, you have great photos that you share on different social media platforms. What has been the most we'll go with the most interesting place that you've been to
Mhm.
in search of a pepper.
I'd say the one I'm most okay, so there's most interesting, and then there's like the one I'm most proud of.
Hmm.
So most interesting is probably Peru, because out of all those countries down there, I love the Andes, right? But out of
Hmm.
all those countries along that Andes mountain range, Peru is just still the one place that you can visit and still feel like you're in another world. It's rugged. The culture shock factor for Peru versus like, Ecuador or Colombia, those places feel more modern, whereas Peru is just like you took a time machine back somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's just that rugged, that real, that raw. And Peru's the place I've spent the most time in. I've spent like 32 days there total.
Wow.
Gone back, the first time I was there for 21 days, we hiked the Saucegauntlet, we went to Iquitos and visited shamans and did all that stuff. And um,
That's
that was
super cool.
just, that was life changing for me, that 21 days in Peru. So that one was like the one that was most interesting. The one I'm most proud of is probably my time in Bolivia, because before that trip, I was always just going to these places to find domesticated species of peppers,
Hmm.
right? Just the ones we all grow in our gardens and stuff. But around the year 2017 or so, I started really getting into understanding and wanting to know more about wild capsicum species and where these peppers that we love today, where did they come from? And,
Yep.
what is their ancestry, right?
Yep.
And Bolivia was like a last minute decision because I was going to do an Antilles island hop and just search for like all the best marugas, all that stuff.
All the flashy
But
things.
yes, all the things we love to burn on. But my friend John Lackey was like, dude, Antilles, forget that. Why don't you go to like somewhere like Bolivia and find something like Capsicum Espagui, which has never been, there's no published photographs of this thing, and it hasn't been rediscovered since William Hardy Eschbach was there like in the 70s and 80s. And
Wow.
that just got my wheels spinning, right? And I'm like, wow, that would be really cool. Instead of finding these domesticated peppers and making videos about that, wouldn't it be cool to go and try to find something that no one has any pictures of? And that's exactly what I did, dude.
Very nice.
It was for my birthday. It was like a birthday trip. And on my birthday, I literally, the first day I woke up, I got my coffee, I got my little yogurt and granola, filled my belly, went to the markets. Markets is always my first stop. I got to stop in that town's market, right? And as soon as I left that market walking up these dirt roads, there it was, and come to find out it's a lot in that area. It's only in one valley town. This town is called Samipata. It's like a high valley town, very green, a little bit more humid there. But, the issue is it's becoming more and more of a tourist place. So you can't really fault the locals for wanting to clear land, make Airbnbs. We're
Yep.
talking about some real issues that have basically led this species to be put on the ICUN critically endangered list.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just so cool. Being able to find an endangered pepper species, publish the first photos of it, publish the only video on the thing. You know what I mean? To me,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds super cool. I mean, that sounds like a very fun trip to take. Definitely one that is very rewarding as a birthday gift as well. It sounds like a lot of fun. The journeys and travels and places that you can go and things that you can see are pretty wild. And to that point, I mean, oftentimes a lot of people that are pepperheads in general, they're also coffee. They enjoy coffee, whether they're an aficionado or not, or they're just out there, trying different things when they're in different places. I guess have you explored the different processes that these countries are doing for their coffees, and really getting to better understand the differences between the higher elevation, the lower elevation, etc. As you're
Yep.
as you're doing these journeys?
Yeah, I'm a bean aficionado for sure. Like to the point to where I like built my own air roaster and modified it and hooked it up to my MacBook for like open roast profiles. So I punch in like different roast profiles. I got really into like figuring out the perfect light roast, But my
Yep.
favorite region for that so far has been my time in Costa Rica. And around 2018, I met this guy named Matthias. He passed away, unfortunately, but he taught me a lot about his process and his business there. But Dota Terrazoo region, I love those beans, those little bitty tiny beans, and the reason that they're so good as far as flavor goes, the plants are not the healthiest in
Mm-hmm.
these regions because the elevation is so high. At night, you've got 50s, and in the daytime, you got 90s, right? So
Yep.
that big, huge swing of temperature from night to day cause these beans to be super compact and super small, and the plants are kind of like, not the best, but the bean just tastes so good.
Nice. It sounds amazing. I'm absolutely already over here. My mind is churning with this coffee talk. I absolutely love coffee as well. So no, super cool. Whenever you were looking and going through your travels and trying to find out more or less the origins of how these peppers came to be what they are today,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously a lot of this can be directly correlated to whether that be trade routes, etc., over the years as
Yep.
civilization has progressed.
Yep.
But have you uncovered anything regarding, say, like a true origin place where a lot of the main parents to the Superhots are.
So the best science we have so far, capsicum evolved out of like the Bolivia area and then spun out throughout South America in a like a clockwise fashion, might be counterclockwise, I'm not sure, but the wave of that this entire genera and all 45-ish plus species that we now know of,
Mm-hmm.
they all started in that Bolivia, Brazil, Central South America area and then spun out from there. Obviously, like you said, you touched on the spice trade, slave trade, all of that is the reason why the what we call the old world,
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why they even have peppers to begin with. So
Yep.
places like China, all these other places that have these famous heirloom peppers, they think they've had these peppers for more than 500 years, but they really haven't, you know. Um, and it's funny you ask about that super hot thing because I was just in Colombia this November,
Okay.
and I was having a drink and I think a bowl of pasta or something at one of these small restaurants, and I'm like asking the server, are there any farms where I can go and film some peppers or whatever? And he's like, yeah, go up this road. So I walk up this road after I get done eating, and I'm asking all the locals, and they're like, peppers, ahi. I've got to use my best Spanish when I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking to them or whatever. But like, do you know where the ahi farm is? Blah, blah. And they're like, thinking whatever. And they go, oh, it's this one right down here. So I keep walking, and I come to the farm. These plants are gigantic. We're talking like the bases. I mean, they had to be 5 or 6 years old, but there in Colombia, these things can grow as perennial. There's no overwintering, you plant them once, they can stay there, quote unquote, indefinitely, so long as they're taken care of. But we're talking plants with like bases the size of my forearm,
Man.
right? And there was some bacatum there, some interspecific hybrids, some regular annuum, some of the biggest habaneros I've ever seen, like even bigger than Hoyt Saxon's pumpkin habanero. And then they had these rows of marugas, and I was like, oh, snap. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Yep.
the owner comes out and he's like, kind of wondering what I'm doing. And here's the thing, in South America, as long as you put your best foot forward and you're trying to respect the local people and their language, and you're trying to, even if you suck at Spanish, you just try,
Yep.
some words are going to get across. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And your intentions will get across too. And he invited me in, showed me the animals. Dude literally got down on all hands and hands and elbows, and army crawled through the plants and stuff, helping me like pick some peppers. Sent me off with some peppers. Did it all on film.
Man,
Incredible, dude. But
that is
these
awesome.
these I'm gonna grow them this year. I'm about to start them soon. But these marugas, panic mode when I got back to the room and started de-seeding them and trying them. Yeah. Super,
Wow.
super, super panic mode. And the flavor is so good. And you don't expect to find like marugas in Colombia. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the west side of South America. You,
Yeah.
you expect those more in Trinidad and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a good surprise. That was probably one of the hottest ones. I think probably the second hottest Chinese I've ever found was in Kandy, Sri Lanka, in a little place called Blink Bonnie Hotel. The owner came out that morning after realizing, that I was so into peppers. Like when you explain how into peppers you are, and they see how into peppers you are, all of a sudden their wheels start turning, and like they'll come back hours later. Oh, my friend grew this one. My friend grew that one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they're like, try this one, try that one. So he made some breakfast for us that morning, and he brought out these pumpkin shaped things with little bitty tails at the bottom, and he called them cobra, which is really, in Sri Lanka they call them nai miris, and that's the hottest pepper in Sri Lanka that you can get. It's just a Chinese, like a pumpkin habanero. It kind of looks like a old school red Savina,
Okay.
but
Okay.
that's the hottest thing. They don't really do the super hot thing there. Like you think they do, because you're thinking India, Buchalokia, Naga, but they don't really eat that. You know what I mean?
Yep. I've seen it mentioned quite a bit over social media that, like, while these other countries and places on Earth are like known for spicier dishes, like just a common higher level of initial spice, if you will. When it
Right.
comes to eating super hots, really Americans as a whole are the ones that consume the most super hots. So
Exactly.
I find that very interesting, and it's one of those common misconceptions that a lot of people just place on these other countries. It was like, oh, they just naturally eat spicier than us. Well, to an extent.
And it's the same thing with the coffee too, because
Hmm.
in the world's best coffee regions, guess what they're drinking? They're drinking instant. They're
Man,
exporting all the good bean, and they're drinking the instant.
interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, instant is definitely easier to keep, like to preserve, to keep good, if you will, and
Hmm.
a lot quicker to use on the go. So I guess that kind of makes sense. And to be able to profit from what you are growing in that sense, definitely does kind of make a little bit more of a correlation of why you would do that from a business
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. They don't want to get into their own stash.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, okay. Well, man, there's still so much obviously that I want to dive into. We'll ask one more question, then we'll jump on over to the game.
Okay.
So ultimately, you have your YouTube channel, you have your social medias. What for all those that are listening and watching that may not be familiar with you? What can they expect to find on your social medias, like whether that be YouTube or say Instagram?
The YouTube thing is kind of a new thing I'm working on. I just started that in like 2018 or 2017, and that really just kind of evolved out of the fact that we're taking these trips, and my wife's like, why don't you start making videos with this stuff? Because I already have all this footage. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I'm already a photographer. That's kind of like another one of my hobbies. So when I'm out finding these things, I'm already taking photos and videos of them. And it was just like one day she was like, why don't you just start making videos and sharing this with people and not just keeping it to yourself? And I was like, not a bad idea. And it seems to be popping off a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I noticed your recent post talking about a mile marker for YouTube. That's why I wanted to highlight that for anyone that's wanting to go over there and check out what you have going on. Obviously, once again, to tie back what we were talking about earlier, we live in a society today where the idea of a forum isn't always the most digestible thing for the masses. And that's a great avenue for people to kind of keep up and experience some of
Yep.
these trips and journeys that you're taking them on.
Yeah, people want nowadays people want their information fast food style. And when I first started the YouTube thing, it was more of, let me just take this cool footage, slap some cool music on it, and not narrate it, right? I
Hmm.
was like, just let people watch it, and if they dig it, they dig it. I dig it. So if it's cool for me, somebody else is going to like it too. But then I started kind of thinking, well, how can I better serve my audience, right? And
Yep.
and it's like you can't just make some aloof art piece that shows peppers and has music and then expect everybody to get it. You got to explain some stuff. So I just started explaining it on film the way I do and have done for 20 years in these forums.
Yep.
And that seems to resonate. And obviously, like literally, my subscriber base went from like 2,000 subs to now I think we're at like 9,000 subs just on that one video, that 13-minute video that I posted
Very nice. That's
on
got to
on the
be a
four fundamentals. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a great feeling to see and to have that change of what you're trying to do, and then all of a sudden it just like grabs a hold of the masses and it continues
Yeah,
to grow it.
I decided let's just try it, see how it goes, and I was right. This is what the people really want, the grow info.
Hmm.
I could post mine and Jen's adventures hunting these peppers. It'll get like 2,000 views. You post something on how to grow, and it's immediately like people just want to feel served.
Yep.
And so that's just kind of how I'm going to go about it now, is just trying to serve the audience a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's if you personally enjoy putting out that content of y'all's travels and everything, and it's a great place for you to basically catalog and document for your own retainer. I don't think that it's a bad thing to have on there, because there might
No.
be others that will, as it continues to grow, they're like, man, I actually enjoy this more than I enjoy the how tos.
Yep,
So
yep. And to that point, I don't necessarily just want to focus on the growth thing, because my whole goal here is to maybe one day have like a TV show where I'm doing this for like an actual broadcasting, syndicate company,
yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, it sounds like it would be super interesting to me. So I definitely see where there's plenty of us chili heads out there, whether you're in the field of growing or you're in the field of just eating. That crossover is still the same. I mean, you can't have the eating without the growing. So
Right.
there's that push, that need, and that want in the market ultimately. That's why you see so many of these different shows and everything, movies and all these things that are coming out to different networks, whether that be on mainstream stuff or on the subscriber base streaming platforms. But yeah.
Yep. And maybe like include little elements of like spicy street food segments and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's obviously a very popular thing on a lot of these
Yep.
food channels, so I can definitely see where that would play in very well. Well, let's
And
do
it's just
this.
really a matter of keeping the cameras rolling, because this is stuff that I'm already doing for fun. I just have to keep in mind, okay, people are going to want to see this whole thing, so keep the camera on.
Oh yeah.
I got to really focus on that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's do this. Let's jump on over to the game. All right, so here we go. We have Pepper Gauntlet up, locked and loaded tonight. This is iteration number 8 of the sauce/pepper gauntlet. So this would be pretty fun. I'm interested to see your takes on this. And as I do always with these gauntlets, just because you deem something a not moving forward, it doesn't mean that you hate it and that you absolutely would never touch it. It just, someone has to win tonight, so we're going to move something forward.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to start down here. All right, so we have up first the 7-pot cinder versus the bubble gum. This is just to represent a bubble gum in general.
Mm-hmm. So just pick one, which one I want.
Yeah, I mean, really, the basis for your selection could be based on your own personal preference or yield or anything, really. It's just however you want to see the ultimate winner come out to be.
The cinder's hotter, but the bubble gums taste better. So
All right.
bubble gums.
All right. Yeah, the cinder is definitely one that ended up lighting me up pretty good when I first tried it. I was
That
more or
thing's
less
ridiculous.
shocked to find out what it could actually produce as far as heat wise. Let's get this next one going here. This one here, we have the fish pepper, and we have a Mad Hatter.
Okay, so since there are so many different line selections of something like the Mad Hatter, for instance, Ubatuba Cambuchi,
Mm-hmm.
Pimenta Orcadia, Campana, I'm going to have to go with Mad Hatter. But the Mad Hatter is probably the worst line out of that type of pepper.
Yep. No, I can
And
definitely.
don't get me wrong, fish peppers are beautiful to look at.
Yep.
They're beautiful to grow, and they taste really good. But there's just this green apple, candy sweet green apple thing going on with most of those Mad Hatter types.
Yep. No, I definitely agree. I think that the fish pepper, it looks great, sounds great whenever you're like talking about it and explaining it from a what you can do with
Historical
it on
standpoint.
a
Yep.
historical and culinary standpoint. But yeah, ultimately, I can definitely agree. The flavor profile, in my opinion, is much better on the Mad Hatter or Mad Hatter-esque line.
Yep.
Let's see.
And they're two different species, so.
Yeah. Let's do this. Next up, we have the King Star Lemon Starburst versus the Chocolate Bootla.
Oh, God. Not the Bootla. Lemon Starburst.
All right. I mean,
That
that was
Bootla just. Ugh. That thing wrecks me, dude.
it's an interesting one. I've always heard, I've had a few that have snuck up on me and hit me pretty good, but I always hear from others how it's just a devastating pepper. But I don't know if I'm just. I feel like I've tried quite a few different ones from different growers and etc. But I have not really had one just blow my socks off yet.
One thing you got to remember is that when someone sends you a chocolate Bootla, their chocolate Bootla is not created equal with everybody else's. Somebody else might have a completely different set of genetics in their chocolate Bootla that they're sending you. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And you
Yep.
talked about cars earlier. It's kind of like finding a Ford Focus that looks like a C6 Corvette and then sending it to you and calling it a C6 Corvette.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, definitely. I absolutely agree. The next two up is we have the Tapine and the Shishido. So another
Tapine.
two tasty peppers.
Tapine.
Tapine, all right.
Yeah, Shishido's really, really good in chilies Toriados. So you just kind of like saute them in butter, and then at
Uh-huh.
the end you sprinkle some lime juice and salt on them. They're superb that way, but they're kind of bitter, fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. They pack a nice punch. I mean, for what you're getting, and that's why a lot of people they're devastated when they try them because they're like, oh, look at this tiny little pepper. What is it really going to do to me? And
Mm-hmm.
then they get rocked by it if they're not used to eating spicy food.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get this next one up here. We have another tiny pepper here. We have the ahi charpia versus the yellow cayenne.
Chata all day long.
There we go. I like it.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love my cayennes, but that ahi chata, man,
Yeah,
that's just like a little miniature fatale in round form. It's beautiful.
yeah. No, I love both of them. I will say, I think my favorite version of the cayenne is the yellow, or some people call them gold cayennes.
Yep.
They just have so much more flavor. They're
Oh,
not they're not quite there in the heat as say a red, but the flavor just it outdoes anything else as far as the cayennes go.
if I'm just packing a lunch and eating a sandwich, it would probably be something like a cayenne, like a little finger pepper, because that
Yep.
just that effervescent fruity flavor that annuum has is just so incredible. But dude, chata all day long. That's the OG.
Yep. I like it. Up next, we have let me move that out of the way. We have the Primo Tally versus the MA War Tricks.
Okay, so I've had neither of these two. I've heard better flavor reports for the War Tricks than the Primo Tally, so let's just go with that.
Okay. I've had both. I think I like I'm one of the weird people that actually likes the flavor of the Primo Tally, and I
Okay.
like the heat. Something about it to me just it hits nice. Now I do like the War Tricks, and
Mm-hmm.
I have had the War Tricks rock my world, and I know that in a scientific breakdown of overall like what it's cranking out, it's nowhere near the same magnitude as say some of the others. Now it's still hot, it's still way up there, but like some of these others that are out there that are technically testing higher, I've had just it's the different capsaicinoids that the way that they hit and how it
Yep.
really affects you.
Those two are both really, really cool examples of what happens when the bees do the work.
Yep, absolutely. Let me get some of these X's down here. I forgot about that. Got carried away in the conversation. All right, up next we have the 7-Pot Jonah versus the Hellboy.
Jonah.
I like it.
I'm the OG guy, man.
I like it a lot. I've had both. I've eaten a lot more Jonahs than I have Hellboys, and I definitely like both peppers. But yeah, if I had to grab one for my personal consumption / just enjoyment, the 7-Pot Jonah is where I would go between those two. All right, now we have the Bullet Habanero, the white bullet, and then we have a ahi lemon drop.
White bullet all day long. Dude, I got this running joke about ahi lemon drop. So when those when we say ahi lemon drop, it's important to remember that we're just simply talking about different line selections of ahi limon, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's Peruvian pepper. It's a baccatum. And to me, they always had this like dried rose bouquet mixed with like septic leach field grossness to me, on the palate. And the sauce that I make with it tastes exactly the same way. I'm not really a fan. Some people loved that sauce that I made, but I'm not really a fan.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, everyone's taste buds and palates are different from one another. There's a few other peppers that are similar in that nature to that I've eaten that others just really love, and I mean, it's an okay. I'll eat it if I need to, but it's not one that I actively seek out.
Lemon drop is probably my least favorite baccatum for sure.
Okay. Well, where do you want to start, left or right?
Left.
All right. Let's do this. Kingstar Lemon Starburst versus the Tapine.
Lemon Starburst.
All right. I like it. Can't disagree with that one. And then we have the Mad Hatter versus the Bubblegum.
Mad Hatter.
Mad Hatter. All right. I like where this is going. The White Bullet versus the Jonah.
White Bullet.
Okay. We have the War Tricks versus the Charpita.
Charpita.
All right. I'm seeing where this is going here. All right, here we go. Lemon Starburst versus the Mad Hatter.
Man, that's so hard. Lemon Starburst.
All right. And then we have the White Bullet versus the Charpita.
Charpita.
There we go. And then there were two yellows. This is kind of where I had a feeling this was going to go. Well, one orangish yellow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Kang, I love you, but Charpita.
All right. I like it. There we go. You know, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to, you don't always have to love it every single time, but someone's got to win. And right now, Charpita. I like it. Now, are you on the side that absolutely believes that it is the ultimate cuisine pepper?
You mean in terms of like all the false rumors about it?
Yeah,
being
like
the world's most expensive pepper?
Yeah, that whole thing.
Okay,
and
so
how it plays into all these different dishes and everything.
Culinary wise, I think is one of the ultimate peppers. Not the ultimate. For me, the ultimate pepper in Chinese is Fatali. That's the end all be all for me, man. You know, that's like just at that cusp of almost super hot, but still just the flavor of Fatali. I mean, you can't show me a Chinese that tastes better than that. It's just, that's the bottom line, but lately after all this traveling in South America, I'm really getting into these heirloom bacatums and heirloom C. pubescens, like the ricotos, the lakotos, and stuff like that. Okay. But yeah, Charapita, definitely one of the most culinarily applicable peppers. You can just do so many things with it.
Yep. No, I definitely like it. I definitely agree. I think this was a great choice and a very fun game to end up having here tonight. We're going to dive into the nugget of knowledge. So this would be a great chance for whether you want to share a growing tip or something that would be invoking the idea. I mean, you do this on a regular too. If you want to invoke the idea of giving an initial insight on where someone might want to go visit to try to do their own journey.
You're talking about like cultivation or just...
So you like either from the nature of growing aspect or just taking a journey into like finding, where would be a great place to start to go find peppers in nature.
Let's do it. Let's do a two-part answer.
All right.
For the cultivation, it boils down to this. I preach a lot about these fundamentals of pepper growing, but the number one fundamental of pepper growing that completely changed my results and the results that I was getting is when I really started focusing on nutrients. And this is something that people are really gun shy over because they constantly hear influencers or people on Facebook say, oh, don't overfeed your peppers. They only need this much. Peppers need no. None of that is true. This entire genera can devour nutrients. And my growing did not change until I really, really, really started focusing on that, because I always thought, well, I've got this living soil, I've got these huge containers, I've got all the light in the world. What am I missing? You know what I mean? What am I missing? I thought I had enough nutrient in each watering, or my scheduling was off. I wasn't doing it often enough. But basically, it just boils down to I wasn't providing enough nutrients for these plants to really do what they want to do. And I've got a couple of books that helped me get there. And it's a series of books from this guy, Jeff Lowenfels. And if you can get these teaming with books, they are just, and this is not me like pushing his books. I don't know this guy or anything, but these things, like, just, I've got them all, right? This one is the one that changed my life, right?
Yep.
The teaming with microbes and stuff, the first ones, got me thinking in terms of, let's get out of that paradigm of sterile, inert, soilless based mediums like peat and all this crap. Let's get out of that paradigm and start thinking about real soil, right? Then this one, teaming with nutrients, is just, dude, that thing blew my mind. And I'm like, oh, I'm just simply not feeding them enough. So that one thing right there, if you can learn how to always stay ahead of your plants with nutrients without harming them, your results are going to change. That's just the bottom line. You will really, really, really be happy with your results once you start feeding these plants what they can actually handle.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I love that book set, by the way.
Yeah. Incredible book set. Go get them. Audiobooks, however you got to get them in your brain. Now, as far as like travel and just life and going to finding these places, I used to say a good stepping stone to get out of the country and to begin this journey would be something like Mexico, because there's just so many types of heirloom peppers in Mexico. But Mexico is becoming like Florida. It's become less culture shock, more expensive. You know what I mean? So now I kind of like advocate for people to try to make it for the first time, at least make it as far south as Central America, Costa Rica, Panama, one of those two countries. That can be your stepping stone. Learn your Spanish. If you really want to learn where these peppers come from, go learn some Spanish and get down to South America and get into the heart of it. You know what I mean? When I go, the best way to do this is just to figure out your airfare, rent a car, and go, no reservations. That's how I do it. I just, on my phone, in the car, and I just put in a destination where I use iNaturalist a lot, so that's kind of like where I head. Those are my points on the map that I'm trying to get to. And when I get in that area, I'm just like looking up Airbnbs and stuff, cheap Airbnbs. It doesn't have to be expensive to get out
Mm-hmm.
here and find these peppers and learn more about where these things come from.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. I like that tip. And then that'll help also probably inspire some of these other folks that are listening and watching to, take their own journey. I know that's oftentimes everyone just needs, you may be 99% committed, but you just need that 1% shove. And that may be someone's 1% shove to get them going and inspired and on their path. So
Yeah.
very nice.
And something I'm planning on doing here very soon, that this trip that I took in Colombia, I kind of got inspired by a friend of mine, Alan Rockefeller. He's like the leading mycologist in this world right now. And what he does is he hosts these, mushroom forays, and just being able to hang with them and watch him in action and just see I was like, dude, I want to do this for peppers. So pretty soon here, I'm going to start hosting these pepper forays and get a bunch of people down in South America, and we're all just going to go find some peppers together.
Very nice. I like the idea of that. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, well, here's a great time for you to put someone on the hot seat. So who would you like to put on the hot seat?
You got to get Brian Townsend on here, dude, from Townsend Chili and Spice. He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, and I know he's been doing a lot of study on this hybridization thing of capsicum. And I know a lot about hybridization and a little bit about simple Mendelian genetics,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a pepper breeder. That's not where my passion really lies. I like to focus on like the landrace heirlooms, right? But this guy, I know he studied under Eric Knight, and Eric Knight is just a mad scientist when it comes to crossing, different cultivars together. But Brian, man, he's really been working hard on all of his creations, and he doesn't get enough credit. And when he sells these seeds, all these people buy these seeds and just flip them and rename them. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
lately he's kind of learned his lesson, and now he's keeping things under wraps until it's ready,
Yep.
And he's got this incredible tasting pepper. The taste isn't like the main selling point of this. It's going to be the looks. It's called Twisty Town. That's the working name he's going with right now.
Okay.
But this thing is like a corkscrew of like rainbow colors going down the entire thing. And
wow.
You talk about cayenne being your favorite, like one of your favorites. This thing is like the best cayenne ever.
Okay. I like the sound of that. I mean, it sounds super eye appealing, visually appealing, and what you're describing from a taste standpoint, it sounds like it would be pretty phenomenal.
And that's just one of, the ones that he sent me those seeds, and I helped him grow some of those out. That's just one of them. I mean, the guy's got hundreds and hundreds of things that he's never going to get done with them all, but I hope he gets done with them sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, thank you for that nomination. Do you have anything else you want to let those that are listening and watching know?
Just get out there, man. If this pepper hunting thing and you want to know more about where these peppers actually come from, get out there, talk to people, get down in South America, and just open up your mind and absorb what you're experiencing when you're down there, because it's also not just about the peppers. It's like something else comes out of these trips, and it's not just the peppers. It's life experience, world perspective. You know what I mean? You gain, it humbles you.
Yep.
So if peppers are your excuse to get out, so be it.
All right. Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Rich, for coming on. It's been an absolute honor. Obviously, we barely even got to scratch the surface on this. Would love to have you back, dive deeper, get a little bit more in depth on, maybe it'd be a few different times. One more focused on the idea of growing, one more focused on your travels, your journeys, and everything you've come across, and just see where we can continue this conversation. But thank you so much.
I'd love to, man. Thank you for having me.
Once again, Rich, thank you so much for being on. It was an absolute pleasure having you on here, being able to really learn about your journeys, your overall entry into the world of spice and really your grows, your knowledge base. It is super cool to hear and see the things that you've been able to accomplish, and looking forward to seeing how things go. Look forward to having you back. If you're wanting to keep up with the Pepper Guru, I'll have the links for him directly down below. If you enjoyed the sauces that were on Hot or Not tonight and want to check those out, from Down to Ferment, absolutely amazing sauces. We had cherry Poppins and Habang Guero Pina. Definitely check those out. I'll have the direct links for those down below, as well as the direct link to Down to Ferment's website, so you can check out their full catalog of sauces. Man, I definitely could not do this without y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday night. Couldn't do this without podvision.io. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. If you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you've hit a bump in the road and trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all your needs. And as a friendly reminder, we have opened up sponsorships for the swear word in 2025. So go ahead and hit me up on socials or reach out on www.theswearword.net. Episode 67 is in the books. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.